Welcome to the third instructional video on the Family Planning Market Analyzer. This video looks at key population segments in terms of women of reproductive age, by age and marital status, by resident, and by income category. So here we are at fpmarketanalyzer.org. And again, we're going to use this left-hand panel to first select our country. In this example, I'm going to select Zambia. In the first video, we reviewed the current national landscape, and the second video, we explored policy scenarios. So in this video, we're going to talk about exploring by key segments. So we have age and marital status, residence, and income. So let's start by selecting age and marital status and looking at the current situation. To start with, you can see the distribution by age and how there are more women of reproductive age in the 15 to 24 age group, but more family planning users in the 25 to 34 age group. We can get a look at how differences by age in terms of method mix, more short-acting among the younger groups and more long-acting among the older groups. You can look at method mix by age and marital status as well as source mix and see those differences. When you get to users by method, you can really see that the largest segment when looking at these two variables are really the married non-youth. And again, that they're largely using the public sector, but substantially are using the private sector as well. And this last graph gives you more of a visual of the entire population by age. You can see that the married non-youth is the largest segment. So if you're interested in thinking about how source mix changes might impact users, we do have this: how would source mix changes by marital status impact the overall picture? So here one can use these slider bars to drag the source mix either towards the private sector or the public sector. So I'm going to drag the married women closer to the private sector and hit submit. And after pressing submit, you can see the resulting changes to the source mix with an increase in the private sector. You can see changes to the method mix, specifically for the married method mix, where they have an increase in pills, which are provided mainly by the private sector. We can look at users both in 2020 and in 2023 based on our new projections with these changes in source mix. And you can see, again, a big difference among the pills. You can also look at visits with an increase in the private sector and a decrease in the public sector with our new projection in 2023 compared to what we would expect in 2023 based on the status quo. And there are further details about how these changes will look by method, as well as detailed results by visit per sector that we've covered in other videos. Next, I want to go to the Explore by Residence. And again, we're going to start by looking at the current situation. So this is where do women live in urban versus rural areas. You can see here in Zambia, there's approximately that modern users are half in rural and half in urban areas. You can see the contraceptive prevalence by area as well as the method mix with an increased reliance on injections in rural areas. You can also see an increased use of the private sector in urban areas. And then as before, you can look at these market segments. And here you see that the rural public sector is the largest segment amongst women by residence. And as before, you can look at all these different graphs around users and visits, and then go to the how would this source mix changes make a difference. So if you were expecting further increases in private sector reliance in the urban areas, you would drag that again more towards the private sector, hit submit, and see the resulting changes as you did with age. So for our last segment, we're going to explore by income, look at the current situation. And here you can see the distribution of the women of reproductive age by income category. This is different than wealth quintiles, which many are used to, that break the population into even segments. Instead, we use the World Bank poverty thresholds to create income categories of women of reproductive age under $1.90 per person per day, $1.90 to $3.20, $3.20 to $5.50, and greater than $5.50. Our rationale and methodology for creating this variable can be found in a brief related to this website, as well as in a peer-reviewed publication. So we can see from this graph that about half of women of reproductive age are living under the international poverty line of $1.90 per person per day, and the other three are split somewhat evenly among the other three categories. We can look at MCPR by income, as well as the number of users by both method and income. And again, you can see that under $1.90 per person per day has the most number of users, so the largest segment that we're looking at, and a majority of them are using injections. You can look at the share of users of each method by income group. Here you can notice that women in the wealthier category of over $5.50 per person per day have a larger share of non-hormonal contraceptions, both sterilization and condoms. The source mix, primarily public sector, as we've seen before, as well as looking at both users and visits. And again, you can look at the segmentation where your largest segment is your public users on an under $1.90 per person per day. So, as before, you can see how source mix may change. There are lots of ways you could use this. You could think about maybe voucher programs aimed to increase private sector use among low-income groups, or you could think about strategies to capture private sector among the higher income groups. You can move these slider bars. I'm going to shift some up here, hit submit as before, and then you can see all the different corresponding changes around source mix, as well as any implication on method mix by income group. So that's the general approach for using market segmentation in this tool. If anyone has any questions, we can be contacted at fpmarketanalyzer@avenirdhealth.org. Thank you for listening.